So these three are what we call the triple constraint. Okay, so we have to balance the quality, um, at the same time, finish it on time and within the approved budget. So, so for the last three remaining topics, so we will talk about the communications. So, how to manage the communications, how to integrate everything. So, and also how to close the project or to end or terminate the project. Okay. So, so let's begin with the communications. Okay, so a lesson overview for this topic. So we have first the definition of the project communications management and what are the processes involved. And second, you have plan communications management. Third is manage. So after planning, so how to manage those communications. And third is how to control the communications. So when you talk about project communications management, so it includes all the processes required to ensure the timely and appropriate generation, collection, distribution, storage, retrieval, and ultimate disposition of the project information. Okay. So, diba in the past we have learned that 90% of the job of the project manager is about communications. So, communications could be in the form of mga written, okay, written communications such as mga memorandums, um, or simple mga emails. Okay, so or perhaps with the use of social media, and for verbal communication, so such as meetings, presentations, and so on. Okay. So we also identified our stakeholders. So and also we also asked their information needs. So in this part, so we're going to manage. Okay. So on when and what information are we going to give to our different stakeholders. So there are three basic processes under the project communications. So the following are plan communications, manage communications, and control communications. So of course, after planning, you need to implement you need to implement the plan, and then there should be a constant control if naabay changes sa imong plan or if there's a need niya uh, to update your plan. So why do we have a communication process? So an effective project communications management creates a bond between stakeholders based on a shared understanding of the project and the ongoing sharing of information needed for its success. Okay? So we need first to communicate with our stakeholders. Diba we ask kung sa ilang expected sa ato Okay? So what would be the outcome of the project? So and how do they want it to be done? So this will be communicated. So after communicating with your customers, with your different stakeholders, and then the project manager needs to communicate that effectively to its team, okay? The project team. So an effective communication really plays a big part in the success of the project. So communications management plan lays out the approach and the method for delivering information effectively and efficiently. So we need to understand. So for this type of stakeholders, kung sa ilang preferred nga communication. So like for example, okay lang ba silang i-email or i-text or via social media, or perhaps kailangan din mo sila presentan sa update or sa status sa project. or is there a need for a face-to-face nga presentation? So of course depende sa ilang influence, depende sa ilang authority. Okay? So muna siyang atong i-consider on how to have a communications management plan. So performing communications requirements analysis. So these are the questions that must be at least all of them can be answered by our communications. So whatever it is, whatever form it is. So first, identify all the project stakeholders. So we already done this by doing the project stakeholder analysis. So we have determined our stakeholders. We also determined their information needs. So now is the time to stakeholder. So define the type and format. So is there a formal type and format? So second, determine the content and level of detail of communication. So of course, the level of detail of communication depende na siya sa kung kinsa imong i-communicate. Like for example, if you are going to report to the top management or to your senior, so most likely they do not want the details. Okay? They just want the summary or the synthesis of what's going on with the project. So, level of detail, so perhaps pwede ni sa uban stakeholders or to your subordinates. So analyze the value of information. So not all information is relevant to each stakeholder. So you have to identify kung what information lang ang dapat nimo ihatag sa ila. So avoid the information overload. Okay. So only communicate the information that you think is relevant in their decision making. So the third question is to when and how. Okay. So select the communications technology. So the considerations, so the urgency and frequency needs. So everyday ba nga kailangan nimo sila i-update? Or siguro once a month lang? Or once the project is done? Or at the start lang? So second, availability of the appropriate systems and media. So in what the communications technology nimo sila communicate? So is it okay nga i-email lang? Or perhaps communicate through the social media? So perhaps you have a Facebook page where the stakeholders can read the update, okay? Or through email. Okay, so depende na siya. Third is compatibility with the project staff knowledge and training. So compatibility with the project staff knowledge and training. So in what communications technology mo gamiton to communicate with your staff. Okay. And then project environment and duration. Okay. So if longer period, longer time ang kailangan to finish the project, so mas dagan gyud kag communications nga ihatag. Okay. Whereas katong dili kayo taas nga project, okay, let's say 1 month lang, so there's no need for an everyday update. So siguro mga once a week lang siguro, okay, or once a month. Okay, so kumbaga sa paghuman na aya na nimo sila communicate. So other considerations, so of course the resource or budget constraints. So even though you want this type of technology, so depende na siya sa budget nga i-allocate. So second is stakeholder impact on success of project objectives. So those important stakeholders, so especially those na na-impact sa success sa project, so So mo gito siya dapat ang i-prioritize sa paghatag og information. So, communication skills. So effective communication involves understanding the audience. Okay? So when you say understanding the audience, you have to put yourselves in the shoes of your audience. So, okay, kung ikaw si stakeholder 1, what information you would likely ask? Okay? Saka nga information ay mo kailangan. Okay? So effective communication, mapa-written or verbal. Okay? So you have to consider your audience. So mungkin ay first step towards effective communication, understanding your audience. Okay? Second is understanding the circumstances. Okay? So like now, so there are communication nga, although preferable face-to-face, but due to the circumstances nowadays, so to be safe, so dapat dili face-to-face. Okay? So perhaps try nani, so virtual communication, okay, or virtual conference. And selecting the suitable tools to communicate. Okay? So in what tools ang necessary nga kailangan nimo gamiton, okay, to communicate with them. Okay? Is it okay to communicate through Messenger? Or perhaps kailangan yun siya i-Zoom, okay, or Google Meet. So dimensions of communication skills. So these are the dimensions. Okay? So first, you have the written and oral communication skills. So although mayo ka og written and oral communication skills, so there are also other dimensions nga dapat pud nimo ma-acquire. Okay? Or if naana, dapat nimo ma-improve. Okay? So such as how to listen to people. Okay? And how to speak. Okay? So listening and speaking, how to do the formal communication and informal communication. So kano saan nimo gamiton ang formal communication and informal communication. So vertical and horizontal. So lahi ang imong way sa pag-communicate sa imong senior, lahi po ang pag-communicate sa imong subordinate. Okay? And of course, when say horizontal, parehas mo og ranggo kibali. Okay? So parehas mo og position, and not necessarily parehas og position, but perhaps parehas mo og ranking. Okay? So for example, with your peers, okay, or with your classmates, so how are you going to communicate with them? So number 5, internal and external. Okay? So lahi ang communications in the internal kaysa sa external. Okay? Because sa internal, tagay terms nga, of course sa internal you can speak katong mga terms nga familiar sa ato. Okay? Like for example, mga accounting terms such as accounts receivable. Okay? What else? Cash and cash equivalents. Okay? Financial instruments. Okay? So these things, masabtan ni siya in the internal, okay, or within among your classmates. But if you talk about them to outside, okay, so let's say external sa inyo you talk about these things to a non-accounting student or non-business student, okay, so probably malibog sila, okay, or perhaps there are abbreviations nga kamo rin nagkasinabot pero dili na siya masabtan sa external. Okay? So you have to consider that. Okay? So perhaps in the internal, pwede mo mag-abbreviate og mga terms pero sa external dapat dili. Okay? Because not all abbreviations are masabtan nila, or not all business terms or not all accounting terms can be communicated to the external. So you have to, kumbaga, change that, okay, nga sa term nga masabtan nila. So internal and external. So understanding the communications channels. So di ba natin vertical and horizontal. Okay? So in the vertical communication, so we have the upward communication and the downward communication. Okay? So the project manager as the center. Okay? So if you're communicating to your senior management, so that's called upward communication. And if you are talking to your subordinates and project office personnel, so that's called the downward communication. And the horizontal or also known as the lateral communication. Okay? So same ni mo rank. Okay? So talking to your peers, other functional groups, and your customers. Talking another lateral communication is to your friends, social groups, and both formal and informal organizations. So upward communication, downward communication, and lateral communication. So of course, laylahi among way sa pag-communicate. So there are rules nga dapat i-follow when you are managing towards your senior or communicating towards your subordinates. And lahi isa lang imong way sa pag-communicate sa imong peers and friends. So communication methods, so you have emails, texts, and instant messages. Okay? So they may be fast and easy, but they are not always the best to communicate. Okay? So yes, it is fast and easy. However, ang communication mo is not only words. Okay? So the communication can also be seen through your gestures, through your eye contact, through your facial expressions. So this can add up to the understanding. Okay? So there are things nga kailangan yun siya face to face, okay? O communicate. Okay? Otherwise you will be misunderstood or misinterpreted. So consider the following. So interactive. Okay? So between two or more parties and multi-directional. So two or more parties and multi-directional. So the most efficient way to common understanding. So if you are having two or more parties and multi-directional, so ang best way to communicate is through a live conversation or just like this, so virtual meeting. So like I'm teaching here pero laylahi mo og location. So naamo sa Agusan Sur, naamo sa different parts of Agusan Norte. Some of you are nasa Surigao. Okay? So in this case, so if you are located maski asa, so the most efficient way, okay, so especially in this time of pandemic, is through virtual meetings. Okay? So asynchronous class, so a live conversation. So push, so these are sent to recipients. So it does not ensure it was actually received and understood. So so there is no way kung wala nimo wa ka kay balo ko ang tanan man communication nga na-receive nila is nasabtan. Okay? So that's what we call push. So when we receive, when we send to recipients, so that's a push communication. Okay? So example of that are the letters, so sending letters, memos or memorandums, the blogs, okay? So etc. Okay? Full communication, so baliktad. Okay? So these are the recipients must access the information. So the receiver will access the information. So works for large amounts of information or large audiences. So each recipient accesses at their own discretion. So examples, so the internet sites, so mga websites, so even mga Facebook pages, okay? So especially for example, you want to know the update for the COVID-19 in your area, tapos na Facebook page in your place, then to know the information, you have to go to the page and access the information. So you have the e-learning or electronic learning. So such as this. Okay. Pero what we are doing is actually interactive kay na virtual meeting man ta, and we can have a kumbaga simultaneous communication. Pero usahay magatag ko og mga videos, okay, for you to learn. So that's an example of full communication. Okay. So knowledge repositories, so online classes, but it only refers to mga asynchronous classes. Okay. So maghatag lag link, then the student will access that information. So managed communications is the process of creating, collecting, distributing, storing, retrieving, and the ultimate disposition of the project information. So per the communications management plan. So again, creating the information, collecting the data necessary, distributing this information, and after distributing, you have to store. So dapat nakasave imong communications for future plans, okay, or future projects. Retrieving those information, and then ultimately the disposition. Okay? So na mga communications nga confidential. So if the communication is confidential, tapos you need to dispose that, dili na siya pwede basta-basta na lang nimo ilabay. Okay? Dili na siya because in our world today, information belongs to is actually an asset. Okay? So information is an asset. So for example, if your competitor, okay, naina nga competitor, okay, so mag-atang sila, or for example, if you do not have a proper disposition of your information, most likely mag-atang na sila kung asa nimo ginalabay ang imong kuan. Okay? So, ginalabay sa basurahan, and then asa ginalabay ang basurahan, so that they can pick it up, okay, and understand some kuan, or gain some information about your company or about your product. Okay. So namo nang naiuban information nga gina-shred or gina-sunog para dili gyud makaabot sa mga tao nga dili dapat kuha ato nga information. So sharing project information. So when it comes to deciding how to share project information, you have plenty of options. So how are you going to share that information? So perhaps through individual and group meetings. Second is through video and audio conferences. So like what we are doing now. So remote and online methods. Okay. You will most likely distribute information using one of these tools. So you can send hard copy documents. You can send electronic communications and conferencing tools. So electronic management, or perhaps storage tools. So electronic management, it refers to mga pwede USB, or sa una na diskette, pero I don't know kung napa ba na ron. Or you can store it in whatever means. Okay? So email ba karon, Google Drive, okay, or what? Okay. War rooms. So what is a war room? So this is a term for dedicated project work area or conference room. So this kani nga room mo ay kumbaga gitawag siyang war room because mo ni ginagamit ninyo for the project, okay? To communicate or to have meetings para masucceed ang project. So what are the steps necessary? Okay. Information distribution methods. So we have the project, stand-up, and one-on-one meetings. So for project communication or stand-up or one-on-one meetings, so you can have the face-to-face or live conversations. So even if they're on the phone, okay, so pwede through phone or via a web platform. So email. So kanus gamito ng email. Okay? So So ginagamit na to ang email if we do not need a lengthy discussion. Okay? So kung lengthy discussion, dili na siya pwede yung email lang. Okay? Kailangan nagkaog live conversation ana. Okay? So if the communication is not, the discussion is not lengthy, and you just want to send an update to many parties, so you can have the email as your means of communication. Instant messaging, so for quick and uncomplicated communications. Okay. So mga quick lang, okay. Mga few sentences lang. So such as stand-up meeting in the break room in 5 minutes. Okay. So perhaps we will have a virtual conference so via Zoom this 3 p.m. Okay, for example. Okay. So instant messaging. Okay, so that's pwede rin na siya text. Okay. Telephone. So if you think there's a really need to have a really need to talk, okay, dili siya pwede og email lang, and you cannot have a face-to-face meeting, so you can use the telephone, okay, or perhaps kanang sa video call. Okay. So when talking is better than emailing, and you either cannot meet in person or the discussion does not require you to be face-to-face. Okay. Fax, okay, so fax machines. So it is used to send forms or signature pages or short documents to remote locations. So if you want to, especially nowadays, kung ang imong mga signatories na sa layo, so you can send the fax, okay, and then i-send na po nila og balik. So reports or letters. So reports or letters to formally document project information or to provide written updates and announcements. Okay. So databases. So for information which is accessed by multiple parties at their convenience and different formats. So for example, you have the OPIS. So that's the database for all your information. So thanks to that, so you can still enroll, you can still enlist, okay, even though you are outside the school premises. Graphics. So graphics is used to creatively represent the project or the team. So as with logos, okay, or other uses where a picture helps to get the idea across. Okay. So, diba? A picture, there's a saying that the picture tells 1,000 words. So in presentations, it is important also. Okay. So posters and signs for team morale or to promote awareness of the project and to remind people of the important policy and procedures. So for example, ani ka ng mga safety procedures. So for example, sa DOH na siya mga posters or signs sa mga mataong nga lugar. So to remind us the different health protocols that need to be followed. Electronic project management software tools, so to provide the standardized reporting or tracking. So such as with the schedules or budget or the status templates. Performance reporting. So managing communication involves collecting, analyzing, and disseminating performance to inform stakeholders on how resources are being used to achieve the project objective. So what are the different update reporting? Okay. So you have the status reporting. Okay. So unsaning status. So it describes where the project now stands. Okay. So asa naman karon ang project? Is it 70% complete? 80% complete? Okay. 100% complete? Okay, so progress reporting, ang sa status day is kung unsa na siya karon. Okay? It does not refer to kanang mga percentage. Okay? So, for example, it is hapit na siya mahuman, okay? Or nag-start na siya, or nag-end na siya. Second is progress reporting. So it describes what the project is, a project team has accomplished. So far, saan na may na-accomplish nila? Or is it 80% progress, 90% progress, 50% progress, or perhaps 100% progress? Third is forecasting. So we know what is forecasting. So it is predicting the future project progress and completion. So kano sa kani siya possible mahuman, okay, or makomplete. Performance reporting should address the scope, the cost, and the quality. So as to cost, within the budget pa ba gyapon ta, or hapit na mahurot atong resources? Is the quality being addressed? Okay, or the scope? Okay, so that this should be included in your performance reporting. So many projects also require information on risk and procurement. So that is why there's a need for a project risk management and procurement management. So status review meetings and tools. So these are regularly scheduled events to exchange information about the project and evaluate the project performance and progress. So some of these are familiar na ta. So number one is variance analysis. So gamito ni siya sa katong sa cost, okay, sa budget. So this tool is often used to report on cost and time deviations. So the actual performance is compared with the planned performance. So when you say na ay variance, meaning there's a difference between what you have planned and what actually is happening. Trend analysis. So it is a tool used to examine the project performance over time to evaluate if the trending is positively or negatively. So positively or negatively. So increase ba atong market share or wala? Earned value management. So it is widely used method of measuring performance. So kumbaga mo rin siya og kana sa standard costing bitaw nga at this level of activity dapat mo ni siya ang imo dapat na naabot or na-achieve. It is then compared with the actual. So the last step is controlling communications. So it is the process of monitoring and controlling communications throughout the entire project lifecycle to ensure the information needs of the project stakeholders are met. So it is to ensure that all the information are already communicated. So for example, nakasend na ba og memo, nakasend na ba og letters. Okay. And from there, you also want to know if naabot sila feedback or napakay makuha nga response from your communications. Okay? Because in the communication, dili na siya one way. Okay? So the communication is both the responsibility of the sender and also the receiver. Okay? So our responsibility ni sender is to make sure that the information nga kailangan i-communicate, na-communicate. And for the recipient, so dapat magpahibalusad siya nga na-receive na yung communication and nasabtan niya kung sa communicate. Second is communication is iterative and ongoing. Okay, so communication is iterative and ongoing. So every now and then, so there are times ka dapat mag-communicate ka even though wala na siya sa plano. So for example, na yung mga deviation sa plan or sa schedule, okay, or na naitabo nga makadugay sa project. Okay. So this must be communicated although wala siya sa imong communications plan. Communications management should be updated from time to time. Work performance information. So these are status and progress information at the level of detail required by stakeholders. So change request. So, di ba, we know the importance of the change request. So, dapat ang mga any changes sa time, sa budget, sa scope, and sa quality, so dapat mo agi sa change request form so that dili ka mabali. Okay? Dili ka baliktaron nga wala man ako ni giingon. Tapos, imo nang gibuhat. Tapos wala kay evidence. Okay? So, if there are changes coming from your stakeholders, so dapat it should undergo a process, formal process first before you can change because na may mga changes nga mo apekto dili lang sa isa ka factor. Perhaps maka-apekto siya sa imong schedule, maka-apekto siya sa imong budget, and the quality nga imong isaad. So for example, there's a revised cost estimates or there are adjustments to the project management plan. Or 3, recommendations to corrective actions. And 4th is to recommend mga preventive actions. Okay, so I think we're done with the project communications. So the next meeting would be project risk management. Okay, so any questions, clarifications?